occasion with us. You honor our graduates and our institution by being here. In the 118th Psalm, the psalmist wrote, "This is a day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And we do rejoice today, and we are exceedingly glad on this important and happy occasion. We have a number of special guests present, and we'd like to make some special introductions. We'd ask you to hold your applause until we introduce each group. You've already met Pastor Sinceros, who gave our invocation. I'd like to ask in this next group, Dr. Lee Evans, pastor of First Baptist Church of Baines, to stand. Dr. Evans' daughter, Rachel, is graduating this afternoon with a Bachelor of Arts degree in teaching English as a second language. He'll be delivering our benediction. And I'd like to ask others to join him. Ms. Lana Wagner, 97th graduate of HPU, and our registrar will assist in the conferring of degrees. We have key members of our leadership team of the administration here. Mrs. Brenda Payne, Vice President for Finance. Dr. Mark Pugh, Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. Brad Johnson, Vice President for Enrollment and Student Services. Our Chief Development Officer is also here, Louise Sharp, who's probably finding chairs right now for some of our guests. Would you welcome these people, please? I would also like to introduce any members of the Board of Trustees who are here, and former members of the Board of Trustees. If you're here, would you please stand and remain standing? And other support groups that we have for Howard Payne are members of the Board of the Douglas MacArthur Academy of Freedom, or former members. If you would stand. President's Development Council, please stand. And Doris Haynie is here, the 76th grad, Vice President for the Alumni Association, and she'll be saying a few words to us a little later on. Would you welcome these people, please? I'm going to ask our current faculty to stand and be recognized, and hold your applause. Former faculty, if you're here in the audience, would you please stand and be joined now by staff of Howard Payne University and former staff of Howard Payne University. Let's express our appreciation. Faculty Assembly President this year is Dr. Glenn Hopp. He'll be introduced a little bit later on, but I want him to go ahead and stand now. He's our Faculty Member of the Year, as well as being Faculty Assembly President. Ms. Mary Hill, Administrative Assistant at the School of Business, is Staff Member of the Year. Please stand. Our Student Body President, Tristan Summers. And if you would stand, and Ashley Martin, our President of the Student Foundation. Mr. Monty Garrett, Associate Professor of Music and Director of Choral Activities, who will lead us in our alma mater. If you would stand. And then Dr. Alan Reed, Artist in Residence and Professor of Music. Would you stand? Let's show our appreciation to these folks. We have our academic deans and Dean of Student Life here, Dean of Students. I'd like to ask them to stand. Dr. Donnie Allenshine, Dean of the School of Christian Studies. Dr. Les Plagans, Dean of the School of Business. Dr. Michael Rosado, Dean of the School of Education. Ms. Nancy Anderson, Dean of Libraries. Dr. Robert McNeil, Accreditation Liaison. And Dr. Brent Marsh, Dean of Students and Assistant Vice President for Student Life. Welcome, folks. We're glad you're here. This afternoon is Dennis Lambert. He's graduating with a Bachelor of Music degree in piano performance, and you're going to hear from him a little bit later on. Last spring, following a rigorous audition process, Dennis was selected as the pianist for the Air Force Band of the West, now based in San Antonio. Please welcome Airman First Class Dennis Fernando Lambert. In just a moment, Mrs. Haynie, Vice President of the Alumni Association, will bring greetings from our Alumni Association. And following her greetings, we will have our scripture reading today by Ms. Catherine Baker, who's receiving her Bachelor of Music degree in Music Education this afternoon. Ms. Haynie.
I would like to bring greetings from the Payne University Alumni Association. I want to express to you, and you don't know what this feels like because you're not out of here, but whenever you're growing up, you're really good friends with all of the children that you grew up with, but whenever you get out of college, you'll find that your best and dearest friends that you keep in contact with most are your college friends, because you've lived with them, you've studied with them, you've hurt with them, you've cried with them, you've celebrated with them, and you've just grown together. When I was at Payne, at that time there were several old Victorian homes where the bell towers are now, all the way down to Vita Hodge. And various families lived there, but as the college started to acquire those, they asked several of us if we'd like to live there. And so I had the privilege of living in one of the homes with 11 other girls, and we had a marvelous time. We enjoyed each other. Well, one of those girls, it wasn't me, unfortunately, but one of those girls was invited to be in the who's who of American colleges and universities. Now, she's actually on staff. She's a professor here now, and I'm not going to say her name because I didn't get her permission, but I'll tell you her maiden name and y'all can figure it out. But anyway, she was invited to receive that honor. And we started teasing her in the house about, her being so important and this who's who among American colleges and universities. Well, a couple of the girls were walking across campus as the days went on, and they saw her across campus, and I'm sure Payne's the same now as it used to be. You may not know everybody that you pass or meet on the sidewalk, but you always at least acknowledge them. Well, I wasn't one of them, but they were watching Mary, and they said, "Oh my, look, everyone's saying, there's Mary Burke, Miss Who's Who of the American colleges and universities." They look at us and say, "Who's she?" So they came back to the house, they were telling us this story, and they said, "Well, let's make our own organization." So we decided to make Who's She instead of Who's Who. And instead of having an application where you had to fill out all the wonderful things that you did, we did the opposite. You had to write down everything awful that you had ever done. And one of the applications, I still have them, it's on the back of someone's, it wasn't mine, but it could have been. It was on the back of someone's test paper that had an F on the top. But anyway, so and it was just fun. It was obviously not a sanctioned organization, but we kept together. And starting in 1980, we started meeting in the summers. We'd leave our husband and kids at home, and we met somewhere and had celebrated a weekend together. And we have kept that up every single year since then. And they don't even all live in Texas anymore. We've been to New York City a couple of years ago, and Massachusetts, everywhere, I guess. And Colorado's our next destination. But anyway, what's happened because of that is because we had that friendship, it was so important to us as the years went on. First, it's shop till you drop and have a good time. But then you get into, you're starting to have kids, and what do I do about this? Then you get into the terrible teens, and you need support from each other. And then, unfortunately, you get to the time of life where one of the girls' husband suffered and passed on from ALS. And so we were there to help support her through that terrible time. A few years after that, she got married again, and we got to go on a wedding cruise. So it's been a whole lot of fun, but what I'm trying to make you understand is how strong those ties are. And how, even though you live here in Payne, those ties transcend space and they transcend time. And those friendships are very, very dear to me. And many of our children have gone through Howard Payne, and that's what you need to know too. Bring those babies back when you have them. My daughter came back the first time whenever she was 6 months old to homecoming. And I have a picture of her sitting on my lap at a football game. And just like a blink of the eye, 18 years later, I was looking down on that football field and she was cheering for the Howard Payne football team. And whenever you bring your children back, then that's where they want to go to school. So we have 3 generations of Howard Payne graduates now, and it's so much